Support the channel on patreon.com/manlightfoot.
Welcome to Simple Thoughts. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about something controversial. Yes, we're still, on controversy for some weird, crazy reason. But let's face it, everything becomes a controversy in today's age. Don't know why. But I'm mainly going to be talking about a more recent topic that is just kind of blown up, and it's regarding Proud Family, Louder and Prouder, the sequel series to the original series. And it's mainly in regards to how people have been perceiving this new iteration, or more or less sequel. And it's just kind of a thing where people have kind of forgotten some very vital things about Proud Family. I'll stop beating around the bush. People are complaining about Proud Family being quote unquote woke. It's like, gag me. It's mainly the conservatives because, let's face it, conservatives are the most triggered group of people on the planet. There's just no denying that. Let's not give them any leeway on this. They're the most triggered. Like, they may say, liberal snowflake or something like that, or leftist snowflake, whatever. They're the most triggered. They're the people who want to ban books, okay? They're the people who want to ban African American history. Literally something that is American history. They're like, no, we need to ban that. And they just co-opted the word woke. I don't know. It's real dumb. But really, they're turning their eyes towards Louder and Prouder due to the fact that the recent new season that dropped has had a few episodes that have spoken on some very somewhat controversial issues, and in the right manner, honestly. Like, they've been handling it in a pretty good way. And I'll at least give my small rundown of what I think of the revival so far. I did a short on it, but overall, I think it's a good revival. Like, I think some of the jokes hit. Some are a little bit like, okay, that's an old, somewhat archaic style of writing that, it's like, okay, we're still doing that. But overall, with what they've been putting out, I'm like, I've been enjoying it. And in this recent season, I think is actually pretty good. I honestly feel like they've upped their ante and upped the game on how they want to tell these type of stories. In fact, it feels like a proper evolution from the original series. So honestly, I think so far with what they've been doing, it's been good work. Shout outs to my friend Bree Navikas as a production coordinator for that series. Hi, Bree. But yeah, overall, it's been pretty good. I think this new season was honestly pretty strong than the first season that released last year. They just did some good stuff, and they managed to get into more deeper, heavier topics than they were able to in the OG, and they do it in a somewhat not good way. Like, there are a little bit of stumblings, but it's like, hey, it's still a kid series. They can't get into the real weeds of it. It's gotta stay somewhat surface level because, it's still for kids, and you can't really get into that fully, But overall, still good. But this recent season got many conservatives in a tizzy because they believe it's quote unquote woke, and they're really bashing it and even trying to call it anti-white. Like, excuse me? Like, for some reason they believe it's anti-white because in a particular episode they talk about reparations and even mentioning the fact that black people built this country. They make it clear that it's like black people were the ones building up the country, making buildings, picking the crops and all that, picking cotton. And yet, for some weird reason, they want to make it seem like, because you're anti-slavery, you're anti-white. So y'all just hold on yourselves. You do know that, right? Way to go, a-hole! Like, it's ridiculous. Like, the fact of the matter is that slavery is bad. If you're trying to say that being white is synonymous to being pro-slavery, that's messed up. Like, you're basically saying, oh yeah, if you're pro-white, you love slavery. And I don't think that's the good message you want to send to people, But what do you expect? Conservatives are like the stupidest people on the planet. let's face it, they've tried their best to screw over education as much as they can, and because they know it creates easier followers if everyone's stupid. But, most of us know how to get out of that whole bubble. But anyway, it's just ridiculous because it's like they don't realize that this is actually a major important issue because it revolves around reparations. And it's a somewhat tricky topic. Yes, like obviously Proud Family is not going to get too into the weeds of it, but they do explain the justification for reparations. It's more done in sort of a slam poetry type of way, and I think it gets the message across pretty well. Just one of those things where they just got really mad at it. They even apparently did like Fox News got on it and started bashing the show for it, and it's just like, really? Like, okay. What's really annoying about this whole thing is the fact that it became controversial because people believe the OG show wouldn't do this type of stuff. Like, apparently all these white conservative idiots believe, oh no, the OG show never was woke, but now it is. When it's like, have y'all just never seen the original series? Because they touched upon certain topics in that show. They touched upon like anti-Arab like xenophobia. They touched upon that. Like, they touched upon racism when Penny went back in time and was like during the time of like Martin Luther King and such, when segregation was going on. So it's like, have y'all just never seen that original series? I don't know. That it's not making sense, It's weird, it's wacky, it's stupid, but that's conservatism for you. It's one of the dumbest mindsets of the planet. Yes, I'm going to be trashing conservatism. Bite me. It's just one of those weird things where people decided the OG show was never talking about controversial issues. And it's like, no, they've always been talking about this stuff. It's just the political atmosphere has changed, or the landscape has changed enough that now we can actually talk about these serious issues in a proper manner and not have to beat around the bush. Not to say the original series was beating around the bush as much or anything like that. Like, they were trying to really get into the weeds. Like, they would show some stuff that's like, yeah, that's something that does kind of happen. But it's more that now they can use more of the terminology and really get a little bit more into the weeds. Again, it's still somewhat surface level because it's still a kid's show. It's still a family show that they can't really get into it like that. But overall, it's like they are able to talk about this stuff in a manner that's like, oh, okay, they are going to bring some proper awareness to this major issue. And it's just wacky to me that people want to believe that now it's gone woke. It's like, it's the Proud Family. If you went into the Proud Family Louder and Prouder thinking they were never going to touch upon like serious topics, you're wild. Like, you are screwed in the head. You just are. Because it's the Proud Family. They were always going to get into the weeds of this stuff. And the way they did it was pretty good. And it's just wacky to me that they're willing to just pretend like, no, it never would have gotten into this stuff. It's like, no, it always would have. Like, it's just ridiculous.
What a surprise to me as I hear in passing the celebration of freed men who sing Jubilee. No signs of that here, as Christian Smith would say. Stop the festivities. The Negro doesn't have a day.
Honestly, this season managed to get into a lot more than I thought they would, and they did it in somewhat of a nice way. Like, hell, they even have an episode dealing with autism for BB, because they decided to say, yes, BB is on the autism spectrum. And I think it's actually done pretty well. Full disclosure, I'm not autistic. I'm ADHD. That's my thing. It's like the cousin to autism, I guess you could say. They actually touched upon this in somewhat of a masterful way. And I think that this season really showcased a lot of strengths on that front when they were getting serious. They even have an episode dealing with anti-black, behaviors, particularly in certain black people in terms of dating preferences. And I'll admit it's not done the best because they sadly do the problem of mostly focusing on Penny and her friends group, because this new kid who comes in to the school, we find out that his whole thing is that he mainly just dates white girls. And the main thing is like, there's nothing wrong with a preference. It's just they make it seem like he's racist in a sense, but they don't really focus on him at all. They're mostly focusing on Penny and Zoe. Penny, like the friend group, kind of disowning Zoe in a sense. And it's just like, Zoe didn't really do anything. All that happened was that new kid asked Zoe out, and that's really it. If anything, what they should have been doing was showcasing that this guy is anti-black in a sense. That would work more. He should have been more of a main focus, because we more or less only learn about his dating preferences through like a third party deal. Like the new friend that's been added to the group, Maya, mentions that a cousin of hers says that he only dates white girls. Okay, but who's this cousin? We don't even see the cousin. And why is this cousin speaking on behalf of this new kid who we have seen and has had lines? It's just one of the structural things that's like, not feeling that how they went about that one, but it at least brought up a topic that's something to discuss a little bit. It's just, it could have been done better, I'll admit that. But I guess the most powerful episode to me is definitely the Juneteenth episode. And that's more the finale, because they're mainly focusing on the town that they live in. I think, if I'm right, it's Smithsville, that has a founder who, it turns out, owns slaves. That's pretty heavy. That's pretty messed up. But overall, it is a case of like, they did touch upon this whole controversy of like founding fathers and being slave owners and trying and propping them up, giving them statues and such. But I think they did it pretty well in understanding that it's like, hey, this is messed up that we're praising this person, but they're terrible. Like, yes, we shouldn't do purity tests full on for people over certain things, but in terms of this, it's like, it's slavery. You enslave another person, you're just garbage. You can't be considered a hero or a good person. You enslaved another human being. Like, you're just trash, plain and simple. Like, yes, I say that about the founding fathers too. Come at me. It's just one of those things where I think they understood that it's like, this is a major issue, and they somewhat even get in on a little bit of the militarization of police, because the way they do that scene is like, oh, there's all these policemen in like all this big armor, and they got the shields and the batons, but they keep them faceless, and it's done to be like, yeah, this is a militant group. They are pretty atrocious. And I think it's done in a way that's like, yeah, that's kind of how you could do it, is because a lot of these cops end up looking the same, and it's like, they're pretty terrible. Like, but they don't really get into full-on police brutality, obviously. Like, that's gonna be one of those things where it's like, how do you do that right in a kid's series, and I'm about to shoot somebody. Like I don't think Disney will let them do that. But overall, it's done masterfully in understanding that it's like, our origins, the founding fathers and such, they're not people really that many of us can look up to, because it's like, they mistreated many people. They treated people like they straight up had slaves. They were awful human beings. And it's just one of those things where it's like, I don't want to prop them up, because let's face it, you don't need a statue to teach history. Obviously you don't teach history through a statue. You teach history through textbooks. That's kind of where that type of stuff belongs. It's like, if there's an awful human being, they shouldn't be given a statue. Like Robert E. Lee, a traitor to America, should not have been given a statue. He was a traitor. Plain and simple. Like, any Confederates of any kind should not have been given a statue. And that's just something that I think the episode did pretty well in tackling that. They even decide, hey, let's change the name of the city. Let's actually prop up like one of the people that town founder owned, because it's like, yeah, that person deserves more than this greedy asshole founder. And they even do a thing where a certain character is related to that founder, like it's like an ancestor type deal. And it's even connected because this character in Maya has two dads, you know, one black, one white. And the white dad is related to this founder's, you know, like a great grandson type deal. So, and it's like, okay, they actually get into that a little bit. And they even showcase it's like a little bit of that idea of white fragility. You know, it's like he's basically ignoring how messed up this is. It's like, yeah, this guy, your great grandfather and such, owned slaves. He's pretty terrible. We know you're not terrible, but you shouldn't be so defensive of someone first and foremost you don't know. You never met him, you know? It's one of those things, it's like, recognize that these were terrible people. And we kind of got to make corrections for the awfulness that was the past. You know, that's how you do it. And it's just crazy that this has caused so much controversy. Like, people, like I said, have been claiming that it's for some reason woke, when it's like, y'all completely stole that term, because the term woke used to be for, you know, government conspiracies, inconsistencies in how the system is working, that type of stuff. Like, that's kind of staying woke. That's in more or less into understanding how the justice system is obviously favoriting one group of people over another. You know, like the rich get rich, they break the law on multiple occasions, they don't get arrested. You know, that would be saying you're woke, when you're aware that it's like, hey, this famous person or this rich person broke the law, and yet they didn't go to jail. They didn't even have to pay a fine. But let somebody get busted with a dime bag of weed, it's like they gotta go to prison for decades. It's like, that's pretty messed up. Or the fact that it's like white people and black people do crimes at the same rate, but black people get arrested at a higher rate. It's like, again, that would be staying woke, understanding the system is not working right and is clearly showing a bias. Like, that would be saying you're woke. Just having representation or talking about some stuff is not saying you're woke. It's just ridiculous. Like, just talking about history isn't an indication that you're woke. It's just saying, hey, there was some messed up stuff that occurred in the past. Like, it's just history, plain and simple. History is not woke. Learning history is not woke. It's just learning history. But I don't know, these conservatives, man, they're stupid. But at the end of the day, Proud Family is honestly doing some good stuff. There's a bit of stumblings here and there on how certain things are being done, but it still has its heart in the right place, I feel, and it's definitely trying to tackle these issues in a somewhat mature manner, being a bit more adult about it. Yes, there's a few jokes that here and there when they do some of these things, it's a little bit like, not terrible, but it's like, I can understand why others would be like, I'm not really feeling that. But overall, I'm very glad that they've actually been tackling these issues and actually getting into some of the weeds of it. Like I said, it's very surface level, but that's just how it has to be. It's still supposed to be a family series, but the fact that it's putting the idea in people's minds, I think, is very important. Actually allowing the youth to be able to understand that there are some major problems going on in this country and that we need to actually properly put in work to fix it. That's phenomenal to me. I like that they're willing to go that route. I like that this is an evolution from the original series and really tackling these type of serious issues. So at the end of the day, Proud Family was always woke. Y'all were just asleep. But that's just a thought.